The opinions and statements made by the guests of the Success in Practice podcast are their own, and I do not endorse or accept responsibility for their positions. Any information given by myself or the guests is educational in intention and not to be taken as medical advice. If you choose to act on the content involved in the podcast, you do so at your own risk. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Success in Practice podcast. Today I'm joined by Tom Barry. We'll get to chatting with Tom in a minute, but before we get into that, obviously I just want to have a quick chat about some of the things that have happened this week in osteopathy. I think the main thing that I just recently found out was that Osteopathy Australia has called for board elections and some people have nominated themselves and put their hands up, and I'm very fortunate that Tom has been one of them, and I've got them on the podcast today to have a chat about that, so we'll talk about that with Tom. But there's been some other nominations too, and I've sent out messages to all of those candidates and given them the opportunity to come on the podcast and I guess stake their claim and what their intentions are for being a board member on with Osteopathy Australia. And so I hope that whole process runs smoothly for all the candidates, and I wish everyone the best of luck. And so that's been one of the things that have happened this week. Something else I'd like to discuss, and I got to talking to one of my colleagues about this, was that we got to talking about some of the osteopathic applications and the aspects of rehabilitation, exercise prescription, the whole rehab framework within osteopathy. And it seems like that we really haven't gotten together as a profession and decided what an osteopathic perspective looks like on rehabilitation. I think people are studying some degrees in exercise physiology, but are we really applying the osteopathic framework to how we approach that part of treatment? And it is an important part of treatment, especially if we want to achieve long-term results for patients. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite some people on the podcast to have a discussion about this. It seems like there are some people out there in the osteopathy world, especially in Australia, in Sydney, in Victoria, in Adelaide, and all the states that osteopaths are kind of have been working now, that there are some people who do have some experience in this field, and there is I think an advanced practice title within Osteopathy Australia for somebody within that field, and there are some people who advertise as advanced practitioners. Now, whilst I've shared my views on that particular process, I would love to have somebody come on the podcast who feels like they are an advanced practitioner, so we can have a chat about this, and so we understand what people are thinking, because I don't really know what people are thinking in this field, and it seems like that people are just doing exercise physiology degrees, or they have an extensive amount of experience in that area and are getting an advanced or a accredited title. So it'd be good to have this conversation with somebody. There are people out there, like I said, who advertise as advanced practitioners, people with dual titles and the only practitioner with this title and with that title. And so we don't want to just go off the titles. We want to go off people who have actual, in the trenches experience with this kind of, I guess, this aspect of treatment. And so that leads me then to the next thing about the advanced titling structure, is that I wonder how much of it is based on experience and how much of it is just based on being able to, put some case studies together and get it that way. And so, I'd like to talk to somebody about that. So please, if you're listening and you want to have a chat about this, no matter what your experience is, I guess, I'd love to talk to somebody with years of experience in this field, and I'm happy to talk to somebody that is maybe recently graduated and has an advanced title. I think that's a phenomenal thing, to be recently graduated, within 5 years, and be known as an advanced practitioner. I'd like to meet the person who can achieve that, and have a chat to them and understand what it is that they know that has given them that title. But anyway, look, without any further deliberations from me, I want to introduce you all to Tom Barry. Today I'm joined by Tom Barry. Tom is an osteopath and is the co-director of O-Health, a leading regional allied health centre in Albury, New South Wales. With 20 years of clinical experience and business leadership, Tom has built O-Health into a 30-person multidisciplinary hub that blends osteopathy, physiotherapy, exercise physiology under one roof. And he's driven by evidence and accountability and an atmosphere and a culture of wanting to do better for his patients each and every day. Raised on a wheat and sheep farm in Manangatang. I'm glad I said that right.
Not bad, Sami.
Not bad, that's right, Tom, thank you. Tom's early years shaped his grounded practical communication style, which I'm looking forward to kind of engaging with, and also his work ethic. After completing a science degree at Melbourne Uni in osteopathy at RMIT, he worked in Melbourne with Philip Tian before moving to Albury with his wife Lisa, where together they built O-Health from the ground up. His career has spanned clinical work, biomechanics analysis of cyclists, and business development, each reinforcing his belief that profit, purpose, and patient outcomes must coexist together. Tom is a straight-talking advocate for the future of osteopathy, and we will be discussing Tom's candidacy today for a board position with Osteopathy Australia. He's called for greater professional expectations and more integration across allied health. He believes success lies in logic and critical self-reflection. I second that, Tom. His leadership is built on clarity over comfort, and he's all about being kind but not always nice. He challenges his team to perform with precision and pride. Beyond the clinic, Tom is a mentor, family man, and a lifelong mover, often found mountain biking, skiing, or out in the water. He also serves on the board at the Scots School in Albury. I think Tom has 2 children with Lisa. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, well played. Yep.
Right.
2 daughters.
We'll get to that too. I've got a daughter myself, so we'll have something to bond over. At his core, Tom stands for a profession that's smarter, stronger, and more accountable, where better thinking leads to better care. Tom, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sami. That sounded pretty impressive when someone read it back.
Yeah, well, I try to give the ups and downs with the tone to kind of
add some colour.
Yeah, add some colour. Put a bit of Ray Warren in there. But that's a bad Ray Warren impression. Tom, I want to get into the into the podcast and start talking to you about some of these questions, because I really want to kind of move on and learn about you, but also want to learn about what your vision is for osteopathy. And so, mate, give me a bit about your background as a young kid growing up in I guess rural Australia. Give me a bit about your backstory, but your school years, your parents, your family life, what led you, and then ultimately what led you to osteopathy.
Well, first question is, do you know where Manangatang is?
I don't. I confess, I am an immigrant. I confess.
You've got to look outside the Sydney borders.
I do.
So Manangatang is in the Mallee in Victoria, so northwest Victoria. It is an hour west of Swan Hill, so it's tucked up into a pocket between Mildura and Swan Hill.
I have to say, it sounds like a Thai beef curry to me, but...
Yeah, most people think it's kind of, they think about orangutans, so that's, you're evolved at least. No, Manang's it's an amazing spot, so an absolute gift to grow up in a small regional community. So we lived about 10 k's out of town. The town of Manangatang itself is about 250 odd people. It's where I went to school until finished year 10 there. Regional life is, it by no means is idyllic, but it's very grounded. So Dad's obviously a primary producer, so farming, growing cereal grains and legumes, so wheat and barley and lupins, chickpeas, as he says, he's feeding the world. which he is. He's an incredibly driven man and an incredible advocate for regional Australia and for agriculture in particular. And one of his defining kind of sayings that I think has probably informed a lot of my behaviours moving forward, and potentially why I'm looking at kind of a board position as well, is simply he has this very, very strong sense that you should leave something better than you found it. So his custodianship and stewardship of the land at home is remarkable, and by any measure it is a significantly better place for him having lived there and farmed it, and also the community is far better for him having been a part of it. And my eldest brother, he's taken on kind of that gauntlet. So now he's farming, and what they do and how they farm is absolutely extraordinary. The scale and sophistication of what goes on, and the risk appetite and so on is genuinely mind-blowing, and it's something that I just wish more people in Australia had the ability to get out there and have a look, because there's some extraordinary people in the regions driving the Australian economy. So I'm very, very proud of that. Mum's a nurse, so classic kind of story. She didn't actually come up and work in Menang at the hospital. She ended up working there, but as Dad said, he came down with some mates to Melbourne to visit his sister, who was living in Parkville at the time in Melbourne while studying nursing, and he found my mother withering on the vine, is how he puts it. So she by no means was. But yes, they've raised, well, I think they're pretty good people. So I've got an elder brother, elder sister who's a physio, and a younger sister who's a nurse. So all very capable, meaningful contributors to the community. So
all of you in health. I mean, what's the? I assume your dad would have been a pretty straight shooter, like a straight talker, straight shooter at the time. Is that correct?
Oh, amazing! Yeah. And just one of these guys who cuts through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Like it's just, you know how a lot of people say there's a lot of words, but there's not actually any substance to it. Mm-hmm. Dad, very direct and just goes straight to the heart of a matter. So he calls himself a simple farmer, but in no means is that in any way accurate.
Your mum was a nurse, and that seems like it's grown on the family in terms of the compassion and empathy.
Sure.
What do you think?
I'm not sold that I'm typically overly compassionate or empathetic. I think that, and you know, she whispers but carries a very big stick, my mother. So
yeah,
little things like I remember I didn't do as well in year 12 as I thought I should have, and I said, "Mum, I could have done better," and she said, "No, you couldn't. You're either not as smart as you thought you were, or you weren't mature enough to use the intellect that you've been given, so you get what you deserve."
That's a straight talker.
That is a straight talker. So that's being kind and not nice, that one.
Yeah. Well, it seems though like your sister is you said your sister's a physiotherapist, and
Yep.
your other sister's a nurse.
Yep.
And you're an osteopath. And so those professions tend to lean themselves to, I guess, people who at least have some kind of inkling to help other people.
Oh, absolutely. No. And I was being a bit glib there. Of course, it's something that I find staggering is that people.
It's not like one of you. It's not like one of you went that way. You know, three of you went that way.
Yeah, there's no greater privilege than helping other people. It's one of the reasons why I find it staggering that people don't find osteo as fulfilling as they could. It's, you know, what could be better than influencing someone's health outcomes?
Whereas we used to anyway.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think we still do.
We still do. It's obviously. I mean, I never used to hear of those complaints many years ago.
No.
So it is something that's happening more often now, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'd like to,
we'll
because
talk
I
about
think
that.
it's a great sadness to me actually that people are seeking to have fulfilment thrust upon them rather than like actually finding it in the work that they're doing. I find that there's a mind shift here that's occurred that isn't good for people. So yeah, anyway, that was definitely exposed to healthcare through mum.
And what I guess, I mean, going through high school, did you go from high school into some kind of science degree and then into osteopathy, or did you go straight into the?
No, I went to boarding school in Melbourne, so year 11 and 12 down in Melbourne, which was great. Really enjoyed it. Great thing to do. And then after that, got into a science degree at Melbourne Uni. So always had the intention probably of physio. Then I went and did work experience at the hospital and realised that wasn't for me.
Right.
So at the end of the science degree, I'd majored in anatomy and physiology. And then I'd been lucky enough to meet a person, Justine Nichols was her name. She was a friend of a sister of a mate of mine. And Justine kind of introduced me to osteo, and I went and observed David Whittaker in Bendigo and a couple of other people and just went, yep, that's exactly how I think physio should work. And I had no interest in the hospital-based system. So I got into both. I chose to do osteo, much to the disgust of my then girlfriend, now wife, physio, and all her peers who, scorned me for such a choice. But no, I'm very pleased that I made that decision. It was the right one for me. And then, off to RMIT, which was it was a fair shock after Melbourne Uni and a science degree. Like, Melbourne Uni is quite an established place, and I lived on campus where I got to meet some incredible people we actually had our 30th reunion just the other day, which was great to see what they're all doing and where they're at. And then RMIT felt very much like a high school, so a bit of a step backwards. But again, great people. Really admired the lecturers and the people that we got to spend time with, and my peers and cohorts were great people. So I coupled the first 2 years in one because I got a lot of credit from doing that degree. So I did osteo in the 4 instead of 5 years. But for a kid from Menangatang to spend 7 years at uni, it was a bloody long time to be not being productive. So that kind of chafed at me a little bit.
Okay. And I guess from what I understand, you met your girlfriend, now wife, before you started osteopathy, is that correct?
Yeah, so we were living on campus at Melbourne Uni at Newman College, and I thought she was terrific. So I pursued her with... Was
this before you found out she was studying physiotherapy or after?
Yeah, I knew that going in, Okay. So I accepted her, warts and all. So no, she finally succumbed to my charms. It took a while. I think persistence paid off in this instance, and you'd have to ask her, but I think we're both the better for it. So no, she's amazing, and she's been an incredible influence on the way we run the business. Very clever lady.
Yeah, great. Okay, and so when did you graduate from the osteopathy, the masters?
I think about 2001, probably. Okay. In that era, 2000, 2001. What about you? What vintage?
I was 2003.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so that was, and we had a couple of people I think come out from RMIT and teach at the time because it was our course was a new course at the time in University of Western Sydney, and so we did have some people come out from RMIT who were highly skilled, highly capable, and we were in awe of that. We heard about this great course down in Melbourne that that people were graduating from and coming out and being very competent and very skilled, and we were in great awe of the people that came to teach us from RMIT, and so I guess you would have been a part of that time. I think Ray Myers was head of the school. God rest his soul.
Yep.
And my memories of that particular era was that the graduates out of RMIT were something to be really respected and looked up to.
It was a hard course, Sami. Like they made you work for it, which was really good. We could see some cracks starting to appear with some of the self-directed learning that was going on, which obviously has progressed significantly in that time. But no, they definitely, there was some genuine sweat equity to get through. They weren't afraid to fail people, and they weren't afraid to pull you up if you weren't doing, some basic things well. And if your knowledge wasn't where it needed to be, they absolutely let you know about it. So the cohort was probably only 30 from memory. And even our clinical loads at the student clinics was significant. It was hard. Yep. Yeah. And I guess I had a reference point coming from the science degree, the neurology and the neurophysiology and anatomy and stuff that we did at RMIT was every bit the same as what was happening at Melbourne Uni. It was proper. It was good.
Yeah, great. And so you graduated and then went to work with Phil Teen, is that correct?
I did. Yep.
Okay. And what was that like?
I'm a massive Phil Tehan fan. I was thinking earlier today when I was thinking about this that I reckon you should have a. You've probably done it actually, but get some of the original osteos, do a heritage series, and speak to some of the guys who really broke dirt.
We've had a chat to. I've had a chat to George Stillian, and I've had a chat to a couple of others that really kind of. I think back in the day that taught you guys as well. I'm just trying to remember the names now. Like I said, George Stillian. Who else did we have on? Oh, geez, we've had some good people on here that have.
These are the guys whose shoulders we're all standing on, and I think
that's something. I had Bruce Duncan as well. Yeah. We've had a chat to Bruce.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. There's a name here. John Pitcher. I had a really good chat to John Pitcher. John was great to talk to, and somebody I think who, when I was talking to many people who are currently working in Victoria, his name kept on coming up. So you got to talk to John Pitcher. You got to talk to John Pitcher.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do. The thing is, I'm reaching people through digital means, and a lot of these osteopaths are vintage. You'd be even lucky to get them via email. It's like I've got to somehow track down their phone number and give them a buzz and make sure they pick up the phone and have a chat to them. So that's been the hardest part.
Might give you a couple of numbers afterwards.
Yeah, mate. If you have any contacts, that'll be the best thing. Is people have put me onto other people, and that's been the best way. So thank you for that.
No, Phil was good. The Canterbury Road Health Clinic was the best one going at the time, and I was there for 12 months. Lisa drew me up to Wodonga shortly afterwards, but enjoyed my time there. Like all things, product of its time. The mentoring and support that we give now is in stark contrast to what happened then, which is fine. I kind of feel like I was more than capable of just getting in and doing what I needed to do. But yeah, met some very good people there, like Dean Holzer and Shane Heslop were there at the time as well, and they were all very generous with lunchtime conversations and some of that incidental case management stuff where you just chat away and you get to bounce the ideas around. And of course, someone who ultimately became very formative for me and whom I'm a massive fan for, and you had her on the podcast, is Jade Scott. So Jade and I were the two grads there at the same time. So we spent quite a bit of time enjoying each other's company and trying to go out and market ourselves in Forest Hill Chase Shopping Centre and going to gyms and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's I guess that's how it all starts. It's almost like you're door knocking for patients.
It wasn't quite literally that, but it was as close as you can get to that.
Yeah. And I know Jade's doing some things now with her practice in terms of. I think she's built a purpose-built clinic, a big super clinic over at Western Region Health.
No, we still catch up, and she's an extraordinary human, but she has dragged osteo from an employment and a people's perspective, kicking and screaming into the 21st century. So the industry needed Jade and needs more people like her. Yeah,
well, we'll try and get her on for a second episode.
There is a lot going on with
that. Yeah, there's a lot going on that we it's just hard to cover in about I think we had about an hour and a half chat.
Yep.
So I'll get in contact with Jade and see what we can do again. So I guess then I want to ask you, starting off O-Health, obviously your early influences you've just talked about, and you seem like you spent a bit of time in a clinic with some experienced practitioners kind of getting your skill set up. You kind of said, okay, it's time for me to do something. Between you and Lisa, I'm sure you would have had this conversation with her, with your wife, and then, how did that all begin, the beginning of your own practice, O-Health?
Hello everyone, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. If you have received value from this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel on whichever platform that you are listening on. If any of the conversations have resonated with you and you feel that I can help elevate your practice, you can find me at successinpractice.net. That is, the Success in Practice program can be found at successinpractice.net. The Success in Practice program is the signature program that takes a practitioner who may be struggling with retaining patients. They may not be certain about building effective treatment strategies, and they may feel somewhat anxious and doubtful about what they are going to do with a patient. And they are not really accelerating in the real world of private practice. It takes this practitioner and it turns their careers right around to the point where the patients have an effective diagnosis and a real treatment plan that they can take home. Patients are happy to book in multiple sessions with you, and they are confident about your abilities. And more importantly, you now have direction and are confident about your own abilities. The program streamlines how you operate as a practitioner. Guys, you should have been taught this at university, but you weren't. You may have been practicing for the last few years thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a more effective way of engaging with patients and getting them results. Well, there is. And this is what the program delivers. Go to successinpractice.net and check out the options available to you. See where I can help you easily grow your patient list and finally earn the rewarding income that you deserve. For all the information on how you can reach me personally, check out the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find a link to the chat transcripts from these podcasts. These are valuable and a wealth of information. I really hope that you're enjoying the podcast. Guys, leave a comment if there's any questions on this episode, and please, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the show.
I've been particularly fortunate with the people who are around me. One of my very good mates, Andy, who knows who he is, but we were camping out in the middle of nowhere near Birdsville somewhere, and we were sitting around the campfire, and he's going, "What are you going to do for the next 20 years?" And I said, at the time it was called Osteohealth. I said, it's going pretty well. I'll probably keep on doing that. And he said, "Is that as good as you can do?" And I told him to get fucked, is actually what I said. But from that point on, I kind of went, right, like this is clearly feedback that's coming from a really good place. And, if you've got the ability to do something better, then perhaps you should. And part of it very much stemmed around the fact that I was probably relying on personality rather than outcome to be effective. And I asked one of the patients, there was actually probably 15 or 20 patients in a row that I just went, why do you keep on coming and seeing me? And then I sort of suggested that perhaps it was because I was a good bloke and I was pretty entertaining and those sorts of things. And one of them said, "Mate, I am not spending $80 to come and see you because you're a good bloke. I got mates I can go and have a beer with for that." He said, "You happen to be highly effective and the most effective therapist I've seen." And I went, righto, so clearly we need to be effective. This is where the physio influence kicked in a little bit for me too, and I think you'll probably relate to this a little bit, but we got to the point where probably really good at diagnosis, very good at people management, very good at pain relief. Like, I love manual therapy. I think it's really, people undersell it. I think that there's an enormous amount of change that can occur using it as one of the tools that you get to use it. It has its limitations like all things. But anyway, I got to the point where I'm just sitting there going, well, I keep on seeing these people again for recurrence of injuries. Why? And I just sort of got to the point where you go, righto, well, really what I'm doing when I get someone out of pain is really I'm getting them back to the same level of function they were at that got them injured in the first place. Mm-hmm. And is that good enough? And if you can do better, what would it look like? And so you go, okay, well, clearly we know that there's some significant issues around home exercise programs. People don't do them. Adherence is low. Depending on what you read, there's anywhere from 20 to 50% adherence to programs. Therapists aren't getting patients back in frequently enough to overload and progress and specify and enable the right behaviours and make people feel comfortable and confident with some of these movements and activities. And you went, okay, well, if we want to really move the needle on these patients, we're going to need to come up with a way that we can get them to adhere to exercise. So it was at that time we came across Sam, who is still with us now. He's an exercise scientist. Got a master's in strength and conditioning, and basically he's just amazing with relationship creation and making people feel safe and secure. And it's just we sort of got him on board, and we just started to see the effect that we could have with patients when we got a collaborative approach to care going. We work within our lanes really well. We have a very strong handover system that gets people to transition from one space within the clinic to another really, I'll say, as seamlessly or as frictionlessly as you can. And we just run them through, depending on what level they're at. We now use a lot of data capture stuff to actually assess what functional level they're at and what we really want to work on. But back then it was very much a case of Sam doing appropriate baseline testing or questionnaires and movement screening, and then just building them progressively over time. And we can now get incredible adherence to exercise programs, and we've got it to the point where we're running hundreds of people through spaces like this, and it's having a disproportionate effect on their health. So it's something we're very proud of. But that was the genesis of O-Health. Basically, can we do it better? Yes, we can. If we could, what would it look like from both a personnel perspective, a behavioural and clinical perspective, and then from a resource perspective? And that was also when we kind of looked around, and I'm sitting in it now, but we kind of got our hands on a 1,000 square metre warehouse in Albury, and we've just progressively converted that since.
Yeah, great. No, I can definitely relate to what you went through, Tom. I kind of went through a very similar thing. I went through a very similar thing where I was very good at getting people out of acute pain. My clinics largely run around acute patients. I do treat some chronic stuff, but I run an acute clinic, and we're seeing people obviously come back with similar strain patterns and similar injuries. And I tried a collaborative approach with, I guess, a few different people. My particular story was that I had something in mind, and my perspective comes from I come from a very osteopathic perspective that, if the rehabilitation has to make sense in line with the principles and the way that I practice. And those principles aren't just for manual therapy. It's osteopathic medicine. It's a system of medicine. And so for me, the rehabilitation has to adhere to those principles. And so what I was finding was that I would have a chat to some physiologists, and they sounded very holistic and very on board and collaborative. But then when you let them go to that in outside of your own space, I mean, yours is a bit of a different scenario where you're working with Sam within your own space. When you let them go outside of your own space and they come back to you and you say, have you done this? Have you been doing that? Oh yeah, we did that to start with, but now we're doing this, and we're jumping around doing CrossFit and doing, I'm like, hold on, step back. This is not what we signed up for. And so my particular approach was to kind of then go away and think about what the best pathway for the long-term rehabilitation of my patients. And I've got a system, but I have in my mind a way that I do that, and I tend to guide that and drive that myself. And I don't want to, I guess it's probably for another conversation, but I can relate to what you're saying, because I think the long-term results is really what gives you that extra. We talk about word of mouth and we talk about reputation, but that it just moves the needle on your reputation and gives you that much more authority. And I used to joke around with my patients and say, the idea is to get you better long term, so you don't have to see me. Yeah. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah. And the joke was that wasn't very good for my business model, and it really is a joke, because it is really good for your business model to get people better long term, because then they go and tell 5 other people about you, and that is much better for your business model than just having them come back repeatedly.
See, Sami, I wish we could just cut that and send it out to every osteo and just go, enough of the glib bullshit, enough of do a really good job, do it for a really long time, and you'll be successful. And it will be incredibly fulfilling. It'll be really rewarding. Your patients will love you. They will tell other people about you. It's just people are looking for hacks, and they don't exist. They don't exist in the gaining of expertise, and they don't exist when it comes to building a really sustainable long-term business. And you can't build a long-term business without doing good business for long periods of time. So I absolutely applaud you, and I think that's however you want to do it, your flavour is different to mine, and that's completely fine. We're still getting to the same point. We were really fortunate. The model we chose to do was have it all on site. We found that having an extra door to open just meant that either people wouldn't attend, or we really struggled to communicate and we try and match. I'm a big believer that you've got to have incentives to match the clinical behaviours that you're trying to achieve. So, we really are looking at a collaborative and co-management model here. We want people to be really proud of what they do, but also understand where their limitations are and where someone in the business is better at doing something, then you use that skill set. And doing it better doesn't mean that they're smarter or anything else, but there's a reality around some of these exercise professionals, and we now have 4 EPs and 4 exercise scientists. They, their sole purpose is to be elite at exercise rehab, and of course, like you can upskill yourself, but these guys are really, really good, and they have the time, and they have the consistently doing it. So everything just gets easier when you do it consistently. And we find that having multiple voices speaking from the same kind of philosophical viewpoint has a disproportionate effect on the patient.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's the key thing there, is that the difference that you've got is you've got them all under one roof, and you can have shared values and shared principles. And that's really important. And that is probably the most important thing to get what you are talking about working. Because
and it's hard too, Sami. Like that's one of the challenges. Is any organisation, there's 32 or 3 of us or whatever it is, and to get everyone on the same page, everyone comes with different beliefs and expectations, and with different goals and how they want to practice and all of those sorts of things, and to try and kind of align people and keep them challenged and stimulated and fulfilled with what they're doing, that's the delicate dance.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. Okay, so I guess then my next question is, I want to just kind of ask you a little bit about how your relationship with Lisa from a professional point of view. How do you split that up? What does she look after? What do you look after? How's that been for you, and how does that, I guess, dynamic work for you?
A continual round of mistakes and forgiveness, I would say, Sami, like any relationship. Look, we were very clear going in. I've never wanted to be married to my business partner. I want to work with my wife. And whilst that might sound like splitting hairs, there's a big difference. Like, the relationship is number one. She's an extraordinary lady. Yes. So she does a lot of the outreach work to referrers. She's incredibly good at managing patients. She's incredibly good at managing some of the stakeholders that, you're trying to meet their expectations with, whether it be GP referrals or other sorts of relationships. And she's just really good. She's so clear with patient communication and care. And she just, obviously she gets it. She created it with me, but yeah, no, she's a remarkable woman. I'm very fortunate.
And how did the conversation go that, once you graduated as an osteopath, and you were an osteopath, and she was a physiotherapist, and she came out, and the day that she found out that the body was connected as one whole unit.
I don't think you're going to like the answer here. I'm really agnostic when it comes to discipline. Like, I actually don't care if someone's a physio or an osteo.
No, I don't care either, but I think the thought process is important.
Yeah.
But I had to ask the question. It's look, my wife's a podiatrist, so I can empathise with you. And the joke between the joke that we have is that, as soon as you get to the knee, just hand it over.
Yeah.
So she goes, no, we learned about the hip and I'm like, all right, well, as soon as it gets to the knee, hand it over. So yeah, no, I understand, mate. And it's
no, we're not. It's one of those things. We're not snakes and mongoose. We're not natural enemies or predators. And we've got some ridiculously good physios here.
Good.
Yeah, clever people, and really. And once you can, I'm loath to say this on an osteo podcast, but once you sort of upskill them, and because we want it, on a certain level, we want a commonality of approach from our manual therapists or our clinical consultants in the rooms. So you try and align people, and no one's ever really that far apart. Yes, they do things slightly differently, but there's an enormous amount of crossover, and the fundamental skills of being a great therapist are more or less communication based and personality. And yes, manual therapy skills are great to have, and we should have them in diagnostic skills. But it's if someone's a good human, they're probably going to make a pretty good therapist given enough time and review. Yeah.
I got back from Brisbane 2 weeks ago. I was contacted by a physiotherapist up in Brisbane who asked me to come and run some of the courses that we taught earlier in the year to osteopaths, to his staff. And so they were all physiotherapists, and they were very competent practitioners who kind of I was surprised by how they were able to shift their mindset and kind of understand and collaborate and really just soak up. Because I mentioned that to them at the beginning of the course, I was an osteopath, and this is coming from this perspective. And I would say that they really lapped it up and just enjoyed it, and had a really great growth mindset, you know. It was like, what can I get out of this? You know, that was fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah.
Good on you. And really, why wouldn't we all, good practice is going to, good behaviours will converge over time. So they'd be mad not to be looking at what we're doing that's good. And equally, we'd be mad not to be looking at what they're doing. Definitely. And the community, if what we're here for, everyone says when they come out of osteo is they want to help people. Well, if you want to help people, then, you know, pick and choose the best things going, and you're going to be a far more effective therapist. So I'm all for it.
Tom, what's been one of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in terms of keeping the clinic? I mean, look, clinics get to a point where unless some big hedge fund is going to come and buy you out, which I don't think I don't know how realistic that is. You get to a point where you've got plenty of practitioners, you've got plenty of rooms, you're running a business, it's doing great turnover. Where do you find some of the sticking points in terms of keeping that machine running? What's the biggest challenge for you right now?
I think it's always my capacity as a business leader is probably the biggest challenge.
Yep.
If I'm honest. So that's constantly trying to upskill and get better and source information and things to do with our team external to here. One of the challenges I think you face whenever you're in your own business is that you kind of, on a certain level, you're siloed. You don't know what you don't know, which is always, and no one has all the answers. And there's lots of ways to be right. So, but the biggest challenge, I would say, like anyone, is I'll call it attraction, but attraction of, we probably go okay attracting enough patients. There's never really a concern around that, I guess. Part of it is team. We've been recruiting for growth for the last 6 years. That's hard. You're not just trying to replace existing team that, through natural attrition leave. Attracting team always, and experienced team. We can get new.
Manpower's been your biggest bottleneck at the moment. I mean, you mentioned that. You place yourself right at the front line there by talking about your own growth, which is what a good leader does. But really, there are some things in our profession. We are a regulated profession, so there are some layers there that are somewhat out of our control in terms of education and accreditation and so forth, that they create bottlenecks for us that, as somebody who's operating, say, as an entrepreneur in a free marketplace, if you find that there's a product there that doesn't exist that can help you, you just go and create it. But we can't just go and create osteopaths. We can't. No. So has that been your biggest challenge? Has that been the biggest bottleneck for, I guess, not just growth, but sustainability?
For sure. Yeah, and we need great graduates. Everyone needs great graduates. The industry needs great graduates, and they need to stay in the industry for long periods of time. I think it's, we need great graduates to come in and grow and develop their skills and do a fantastic job with our patients, which builds and grows our business. And then ultimately we need great graduates to come through and be the next generation of people who are buying clinics like ours, Sami. So, we absolutely, we would love graduates to enjoy their profession. We'd love them to I guess, it's really difficult. Like it's not their fault that, and I don't know whether it's just the old man lens looking back, going, it's not the same as it was when I was going around. But I think there's some really fundamental challenges with how education's being created at the moment, and it isn't the people who are doing the educating. I've been really fortunate to spend a little bit of time with the guys at both RMIT and Vic Uni. I do a little bit of clinical supervision at Vic Uni, and I go down and speak every now and again at RMIT, and we host some of their students. And those guys who are leading the courses are working so hard, and they're trying so hard in a really difficult situation to create graduates who are strong and capable of of leaning into osteo and enjoying it long term. And I think that I would just like the young guys coming out to find the joy in it, to not sit there shitting themselves that they're going to burn out or they're going to be overworked. Like I find that as a narrative to be really disturbing. They're 23 and 4. Like, come on, like it's a joyful profession. Like, okay, it's hard and nothing's ever perfect, but fundamentally, like, you're there helping people regain and restore health, and you're building a relationship with them over time and making a meaningful impact on them. I mean, what could be more fulfilling? And yet the narrative that they get coming out of uni is that self-care is number one. And I think there's probably a hyper focus on that doesn't need to exist. I think even the way that the unis are forcing education on people. I touched on self-directed learning earlier, which was kind of the first foray that RMIT had into kind of hands-off learning experiences, and learning has to be hard. I mean, that's the way we learn, is through friction, and it's the classic hero's journey, isn't it? That you try something, you fail, you dust yourself off, you have a few tears, you have another crack, and you fail, and then you go again and again, and that's how you learn. Whereas what we're doing is delivering content to these guys virtually that they can consume whenever they want and with no friction. And if it's a really cheap form of, and I mean cheap not in necessarily financial, but cheap as in sweat equity, personal investment, effort.
Yes.
It's a really cheap way to educate someone. And I don't know that it's the right way forward. I think we've got no choice. I think AI will probably change that for the better in the near 5 to 10 year time frame. So I think education will get better again. I'll say I'm pissing into the wind a little bit with that. With wanting them to move away from the kind of take the education when you want it perspective. It even from a behavioural standpoint, it just doesn't stand up to the real world. They roll out of uni and they turn up maybe 1 or 2 days a week, maybe, and then they rock into clinic and at 8 o'clock you've got an 8, then you've got an 8:30, then you get a 9, you get a 9:30, you get a 10, and then you'll be doing that tomorrow, and then you'll be doing that the next day, and then you'll be doing it the next day, and it's just like they haven't had the chance to develop those behaviours that assist them in managing that.
Yeah, look, most of my experience through university was university and then 4 jobs on the side. And so you really had no time to not struggle. And so I think that's one aspect of it. Now, how do we recreate that? We can't really. It's a different time, it's a different era. Having a conversation with one of the parents that my son plays soccer with, and I used to say, look, we only used to train 2 days a week in soccer, and we played at a higher level back in those days. But that's because we had a ball in our hand and we were playing soccer on the road and on the dirt, for the other 5 days a week. And so times have changed. You can't let kids out on the road and, just let them out. Like we talk about going out and riding our bikes till the street lights came on. Just can't do that anymore. Times have changed. It's the same kind of thing with how osteopaths are going through. And I guess one of the things that I've discussed with some of the educators and some of the people that are running the courses as well is I think there's an opportunity here for us with internship that we haven't really explored to its fullest extent, where people like you and me, Tom, can put young practitioners through their paces and give them a taste of what it's like to actually be successful in practice, and I guess to get them ready properly, because they're not coming out ready in the work ethic sense. They think that if I do more than X amount of patients per week, I'm going to burn out. And you're right, there has been a time where we did tell people that they should be more interested in self-care, and don't work more than three and a half, 4 days a week, and make sure you have a holiday. Every 3 months, take a few weeks off, and make sure you look after yourself, and you got to do your yoga and Pilates twice a week, and go for walks on the it's getting a bit much. And so we need to understand that if you want a certain outcome, you have to be able to put in a certain type of effort.
Yeah.
That's
so
simple
one
as
of the
that.
things that I think this harks back to my rural upbringing, but let's be honest, osteo is not shearing sheep, is it?
No.
Yeah. And
No.
I think that if you want something, you sacrifice more or you expect less. Everything's a trade-off. And, I know that Simon Sinek talks about the infinite game and, zero-sum games and infinite games. There are certain things, particularly with, respect to time and effort and energy, there, fundamentally, if you want life to be easy in the future, then make hard decisions now. Whether they be financial, physical, health, or whatever. We can all eat Maccas today. Doesn't make your life any easier 10 years down the track.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the challenges through uni. Just needs to be a little bit harder, I think. And that's not a shot at the unis either, because they're operating under a lot of control and duress. And I actually disagree with you too. I think that kids can play on the streets now. We just don't let them. There's a fascinating book called The Anxious Generation, written by a guy called Jonathan Haidt, and I would suggest that lots of people should read it, and it'll give you much more empathy for the generation of my kids' age, so they're 16 and 18, and the guys coming through now, because a lot of it has to do with the way that we raised them, and it's not their fault. And what we need to do is very gently bring them up to speed. And we run a really strong mentoring program here. Costs us somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 30 grand a year in the first year to do it, but we can't afford not to do it. It's just our reputation is dependent upon these guys being good. As you said, we need them. They are great young people. Some of the guys that we've had come through here, I hope you can hear the smile in my voice. They are such capable, intelligent, driven, bloody good people. They can just take a little bit longer, but the investment in them, people don't change, fundamental human natures don't change. It's just a matter of, I think, being really open with them about whether it be the economic realities of some of the choices they're making, or whether around caseloads, just getting them to interrogate beliefs around burnout and work-life balance, and what are you trying to achieve with a patient? I think that there's times where we're probably not overly clear about that. I think that unis could probably do a better job. There's a lot of talk about how there's all sorts of different streams you can go into with osteo, and yes, there is, but overwhelmingly, the numbers are still going to private practices. Why are we not teaching, some of the commercial realities of osteo to third, fourth, fifth years, so they can make decisions moving forward? I think that
that's still the major leagues in terms of what we do. Private practice is still where it's at. I think where we should be
from a percentage perspective. It absolutely is.
Yep. And that's, I think you could cut your teeth in private practice and go out into other areas pretty easily, I think, or easier. Whereas if you go and cut your teeth in aged care, it's going to be a lot harder to get into private practice, or in some kind of other modality. Okay, so Tom, you obviously mentioned that that manpower, or I guess the workforce, has been a bit of a bottleneck for some growth and sustainability, and the graduates mostly are coming out of Victoria, and so where do you think where do you think there are some opportunities about that? I guess non-Melbourne opportunities. What do you think new grads? Why do you think they're not taking those opportunities outside of Melbourne?
Yeah, my belief is that it's predominantly because it's a Melbourne-based cohort in the sense that they're from Melbourne. So you're asking them to leave family, friends, support networks, all of those sorts of things. This is something I've looked at a lot. Like I've spoken at RMIT and Vic Uni for years about regional opportunities, and obviously done a particularly bad job. And when I say regional, I actually phrase it when I go down there as non-Melbourne opportunities. So it's in the best interest of the industry that the industry nationwide has access to graduates. We just don't get a chance to get our hands on them, and this is the thing that the students or the new grads are actually the ones who suffer as well. Like anything, people are a resource in some respect, and if the resource is plentiful, then typically, they're not well remunerated or they're not valued as highly as if they would be elsewhere. I think so. I started off by I used to run questionnaires asking graduates what they were looking for in their fourth and fifth years. Overwhelmingly, they all said mentoring. I think it was something like 78% said mentoring, and then I reckon there was another 10% that said money, and then the last few said other reasons, but one of which was location. So, like most things, when you ask someone, they'll say one thing, but their behaviours scream another. So, overwhelmingly, people stay in Melbourne, and it's a problem for them. They're working at multiple clinics. They're not seeing good enough patient numbers. The levels of support may not be what they'd get elsewhere, but it's convenient. And I think
What do you think they mean by mentoring? I mean, when me and you were going through, probably mentoring meant that we want to bounce some clinical stuff off you and, just get an idea of what you think clinically, and then maybe a little technique help here and there. What do you think mentoring means now?
Probably sixth year at uni.
Yeah, okay.
I'm being a bit smart, but it's...
No, I don't disagree with you, but just clarify it for us, because I feel like I'm a broken record because I'm on this podcast every week and I'm talking about the same thing. And so, help a brother out.
It's a formal approach to the gaining of expertise or the transition of expertise or experience from one therapist to another. And they want it formally and they want it extensively. And that's okay. You can have that, but you can't have high levels of pay at the same time because it's expensive.
Tom, do you think that, going back to when I was at university, and you would probably have a similar experience, you would have had people like, obviously, some of the lecturers that you had that had quite a lot of clinical experience. And they would sit there and they'd obviously not just teach you a technique or teach you, I guess, osteopathy, but they'd tell you about osteopathy. I had a patient come in last week and this is what we saw and this is what we found and, this is what happened, this is what I did, and what do you guys think? And you'd have this back and forth with them. I don't know if that's happening to the same. So it seems like there's a bit of a need and a want there from a generation of students, including us, for the previous generation to tell them that if you do X, Y, Z, you're likely going to get a great result, or you're likely going to get a good result. And I guess in the first 3 to 6 months of your practice, that helps a lot. You probably, when you were in a tough jam, Tom, you probably think, what would Phil do? And when I was in a tough jam, I was like, what would John do? What would Anne do? What would such and such do? I don't know if when people say mentoring, I feel like that's what they want. They want somebody to look up to, that when the chips are down and it's hard, they can refer back to them because they have a solid state of experience. And obviously, as a student, you don't.
To model behaviours for sure.
Can you comment on that, and to the extent of that? How deep do you think that is compared to, I guess, just wanting someone to be there for them? Because I don't think that's happening at university now. I don't think...
It's a bloody good question.
Yeah, I don't blame... Sorry, I cut you off. I don't blame the educators. I just don't think they have the time. I think there's so much there to teach. Things are shifting online. Lecturers... You're not in a lecture theatre where somebody can just... As they're teaching you neurology, they can just stop and say, well, this is what happened, and that sinks in, right? Like that sinks into your brain when somebody relates it back to something clinical. I just don't think the educators have the time. They've probably don't have the resources or whatever it is
it's not
to kind of do that. It's not structured that way anymore, They have to follow a certain criteria, they have to follow certain outcomes and so forth. So,
humans have learned from each other from time immemorial. Like the oral tradition and passing things on from one generation to the next is as old as mankind itself.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the challenges, and I do bemoan, and we're not going to change the internet-based culture of university.
I agree.
But what we need to be doing, and I see it at Vic Uni, I see it at RMIT as well, they've got to, with the clinicians who are there, they absolutely are trying to ignite passion in the students, and it's wonderful. And you see the kids flourish, not the kids, the young people flourishing underneath it. It just doesn't have the ability to happen often enough. And when you have the technique classes and that intersectionality where, as you say, someone says something and then the next guy says it again, and all of those things, like you say, make osteo great again, which I enjoy very much, but like make osteo joyful again.
Yeah.
Good Lord, it's fun. Like, how can it not be fun? Like, anyway,
great.
So I think that it's probably a two-part question as well. Like, you're talking about, because there's always two parts to an equation. There's, in this instance, there's the teaching methodologies, which I think, are probably not serving us particularly well. But you've also got the cohorts coming through, and they are less secure than what we were at similar stages of development. They are more anxious about things, both clinically and just fundamentally. They do have, like, I'm a big believer in kind of cognitive load theory and around zones of proximal development and so on. And, they are constantly hyperstimulated. Like, there is no question, with devices pinging in their pockets, with phones that buzz, that all of these sorts of things that are occurring. Like, it is very difficult to break through that noise. And as a result, it would be more difficult to learn under those situations, because we all have a certain amount of bandwidth, and when it's being tugged left and right constantly, it makes it difficult. None of it's insurmountable, but I think that we need to let people know that patients get better. That happens more often than it doesn't. And when you get out into the world and the community, there's a genuine joy and excitement in doing what you're doing and influencing the health of people.
We're in competition with a lot of that bandwidth, aren't we? Like,
for sure.
And so I guess you're right, because having a chat to Gary Fry a little while ago, and I asked him about some of the more traditional ways that we were educated. And he said to me, Sami, all that stuff is there. All the books are there. All the traditional osteopathic texts are there. But, we can give it to them, but ultimately it's up to them to go and open it and have a look at it and take it. And that what you just said just triggered that conversation, because you're right, there's a lot of bandwidth there they have to fight against. And if it's between them scrolling through their phone, whether it be researching something or looking at something else, or going and looking and searching for osteopathy, that's a competition. It's a competition of ideas and of attention.
For sure. And TikTok and Instagram and whatever else is going on, it is a no contest. Like, that is how they're designed, and that's the reality of the way we operate. And I think we'll look back on, the last 20 years, and we'll view what we've done with phones and devices the same way that people look back on smoking. I think it's probably the single biggest impact on public health that's ever happened.
Right.
We just don't talk about it because everyone doesn't want to address their own challenges with it.
Yeah.
So I'm very, and there's so many resources on this now, and the jury is not out anymore. Like, it is very clear that phones and devices, even if you don't believe that they're addictive or anything else, there's an opportunity cost to people spending anywhere from 3 to 6 hours on a phone.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the next question for you is then, having obviously been out in regional New South Wales, is it New South Wales or Victoria that Albury's in?
We're on the New South Wales side.
On the New South Wales side,
Yep.
right. So being out in regional New South Wales, obviously you're quite aware that there's there's no education in Sydney. How important do you think it is that we start to expand? I mean, we've just talked about the quality of education, but I guess now we're talking about the quantity of education. How important do you think that we expand education back into Sydney, and not just Sydney, but I'm thinking of South Australia. Like, what kind of vision do we have to have for education in Australia?
This is a question well beyond my pay grade. I think that there is no question when you educate someone locally, they stay. So Albury has a university 5 k's that way. They train physios. As a result, they stay here.
Yeah, right.
Yep, no question. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you fund it. I don't know all of those really gnarly questions, but there is no doubt we need a non-Melbourne based course, or we need to do something dramatic that allows my big belief with the unis is if we can get, so people will not leave Melbourne and home, will leave home. They will not leave home for a job, like they won't. So you can put the best job out that ever existed, and you won't get any applicants.
I agree.
If you personally, in this instance, and me, if we can get down to the universities, and if we have access to people that way, what students will absolutely leave for a relationship. If they look at you, they get a chance to speak with you, they get to spend some time with you, that is a much higher chance of them, in the first instance, even coming and looking at your clinic. So we need to somehow systematically allow access for people who aren't from Melbourne to this cohort of students who are typically going out and being underemployed in Melbourne and ultimately leaving the industry. So that is something that I think we can do and we should be doing, and doing it in a meaningful and consistent way. Vic Uni has been fantastic, actually. I'm in the process of getting 4 non-Melbourne osteos to go down, and what it takes is you do a 4-week block in the clinical as a clinical supervisor. So they've basically reserved a non-Melbourne clinical block for me when I can get enough people to fill it. And they go down for 4 weeks consecutively, and then the next person does the next 4 weeks, and then the next one does the next 4 weeks, so that we round out a 16-week block, and then it starts again. So I'm actually heading down on Thursday. It's my first week of my block, so I'll go down for the next 4 Thursdays. It isn't a solution for people from Sydney, unless you can fly down, it's bloody hard, but it's a start. And Vic Uni know there's a problem. So do RMIT, which is why they do a lot of their, I'm having a mental blank, whatever it is, yep. They know that better opportunities exist outside Melbourne for a lot of these guys, so they're right up for it. It's a matter of a few of us getting our act together and starting to organise something. I do not know how to combat that if you're not within driving distance of Melbourne, though. So.
Yeah, look, I don't. I think we're kind of trying to push something uphill here with regards to Sydney. I mean, we need a course in Sydney. It would just be ridiculous to think that you're going to have enough people coming out of 2 Melbourne universities that are going to supply the largest market in the country.
I think the other option is that it just gets so shit for people in Melbourne that they're forced to leave, which I don't actually see that happening.
What do we need to get? Is that really what we want to do?
Absolutely
is make
not.
it? No, we don't want to do that. It's
Yep.
brutal. It's brutal. And so I think that should be our singular focus, is to start having courses in Sydney, in other, South Australia, Adelaide, North Queensland needs something. And so we need to rethink our approach to how we deliver education. Look, I remember when we were giving birth to our third child, James, the midwife that delivered James had a degree from, trying to remember the name, I think it was is it Charles Darwin University?
Charles Sturt. Yep.
Charles Sturt in Darwin. There we go. So her degree was from a university in Darwin, and but I said, oh, so you went and lived in Darwin she goes, no, I did it here in New South Wales. She was living in New South Wales at a Westmead Hospital in Western Sydney, and was able to get her midwifery accreditation from Darwin. And I thought, okay, there's something to this. I mean, midwifery is pretty hands-on, and they need some clinical experiences just as much as we do. So I think we need to really rethink how, and this is not something that's just for the association to think about. But they can be leaders in that space. But obviously, the accreditation processes and all these things need a bit of a revamp, so we can deliver courses that meet regulatory requirements, but are robust enough that we can deliver them, I guess, in a way that means that somebody from Sydney can access them. Somebody from North Queensland can access them. Somebody from wherever, from Albury, someone that doesn't have to leave, and if they do have to leave, it might be for, a few trips a year. And so then we get to the point of, back to your point, is how do we, all this distance learning that creates problems for education. I think that's where internship does play a role, where then you can do an internship for a year or for 6 months with somebody like yourself or somebody that has a clinic that meets certain standards, and then they can get a bit of an idea of what private practice tastes like. And so we just have to come up with these. We have to do better. We need to do better than what we're doing right now. I don't pretend like I have all the solutions, but there are people smarter than me, I think, that can get together in a room and figure all this out. Tom, I want to touch a bit on, well, not to touch a bit, but talk quite deeply about your nomination for the board of Osteopathy Australia. And I guess the main question I want to ask you is, what is it that prompted you to want to be on the board specifically, rather than just having a general need to help the profession, which I think everyone I'd assume that. But specifically, what is it that you want to do? Where do you think Osteopathy Australia could do better? And I like the fact that we've been having a very straightforward conversation, so I'd like for that to continue. Where do you think Osteopathy Australia could do better? And what things would you like to achieve there? Like what would be one or two things that you'd like to say you did there that improved things for the profession?
Yeah, I probably don't have any. I guess contribution's always key to it. Leaving the place better than I found it. If I could do anything, it would be trying to reduce some of the, I'll say, Melbourne centricity of osteopathy. I think that's a real headwind for us. So that's something I would like to try and influence in some way. I feel like over the years I've gained enough different skills across different organisations to have an understanding of how governance should work and what we can be kind of doing. I think we need to probably speak more about business than we do. It seems like it's a dirty word, yet it underpins kind of the entire industry. Like, if we don't have a stand-up commercial-based model, then everything else falls over. And I think that there's a lot that we can be doing around that. And I think we should be holding up aspirational business people or leaders in the community like you like Jade Scott, people who are getting out of their comfort zone and trying to make the industry better. I think we should be platforming them better. There's a lot of people doing some really innovative and unique things in the industry that I think creates an aspirational model for people. And particularly, you speak about getting younger generations excited. Well, I think you do that when you base kind of you demonstrate or you show people aspirational figures, because it demonstrates what can be achieved within the profession, and I think we should be excited about the profession. So probably instead of making osteo great again, bring the joy back is what I would say. But there's some great people doing great things in the industry, and if we're sitting here talking about the lack of new, excitable young generations coming through, I don't think that that's true. I think they're there. I just don't think we're talking to them well enough. And I'd like to really look at that. I'd like to change some of the narratives around self-care. I think that the self-care narrative has been really hijacked to become quite indulgent. I think that there's a lot more we could be doing in that space to actually create far more robust and robust or pragmatic therapists. The world needs people not to be nice. They need people to be kind. Like, don't say things that are easy. Say the things that are honest. Patients deserve it. The industry needs it. So that's what I'd be saying.
And how do you plan on, I guess, doing that within the current structure of OS? I mean, obviously, with a board functioning the way it is and the hierarchy there, how do you feel that? What kind of things do you think that you would do to be able to go in there and be effective with some of the things that you want to achieve?
Don't know. Haven't seen how it works. So,
are you somebody that's happy to go in there and say, look, these are the things that I would want to change, and these are the things that I think could be done better? Are you somebody? Yeah,
for sure. That's the role of governance, is to be looking at how things are performing and the things that aren't performing. You come up with solutions, or you come up with directives that allows the executive to act on them.
Are you happy with the amount of communication that we receive from Osteopathy Australia in terms of what they get right and what they don't get right? Do you feel like that there's enough transparency there with how things are run? I mean, I've been a member since I was a graduate.
Same.
And I believe in a strong association. I really do. I don't always agree with what some of the things that Osteopathy Australia has done in the past. And I think there's some checks and balances, better checks and balances could be put in place to make sure that things are going forward. And so with that in mind, change is always a hard thing. But it's ultimately necessary. Are you somebody that could affect change, Tom?
I think if I didn't think so, I wouldn't be running.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And to be honest, it's very easy to look in externally. I think that what is critical is when you start with these positions, you're there for a reasonable length of time, 3 to 5 years, maybe more. But really what you're wanting to be doing is getting a lie of the land in the first instance and seeing the things that don't sit well with you. They will be doing so many things really well, and they will be doing some things that could conceivably be done better. What those are, I don't know, because I'm not in the room with them. Yeah.
See, one of the things that I would like to hear more of is I would like to hear more from specific board members, because the executive is there to kind of execute on the directives of the board, and so I always feel like that people go and they go on the board to give back to the profession. Now I understand that, but I think you need to go on the board not just to kind of go along and give back and just. It's like you're not there just to help run the sausage sizzle at the local footy game. You're there to actually see if the thing's being run properly and then make changes to it so that the executive can run the sausage sizzle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's governance is eyes in, hands out.
Yeah.
Yep. So we as a group believe this to be the best way that the organisation can move forward.
Yeah.
And then the executive typically will act on that. Or that's how it works on boards that I've been involved in.
Yeah.
The executives do the day-to-day work, the board members should not be getting their hands dirty with that sort of thing.
Yeah, and in saying that, the executive then answers to the board, and if the board,
absolutely.
So I would like to, and I've put this call out to everybody from all the board members on Osteopathy Australia to come on the show and have a chat. And I'd like to, and previous board members, I'd want to know what they felt they achieved, what they felt they wanted to achieve and couldn't, because I think that's important. So I guess, Tom, if you do make it on, mate, and and good luck to you. Come and do an episode and tell us what your experience is like.
Pretty hard from regional Australia to get on, Sami.
Well, mate, I know, I understand. Yep. It's a kind of thing where you.
It's not a prejudicial thing. It's just simply that we're not in and around where the votes are enough.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and it's you're right. It can be a bit Melbourne centric because there's a larger population there of osteopaths that have voting power, and people get on the phones and call up their colleagues and acquaintances and friends and get the votes together, and that's the voting process. I guess that's
that's democracy too.
That's the game. But good luck to you, Tom. I wish you all the best in your endeavours with Osteopathy Australia. I know you've tried before, and whatever happens, whether you make it or you don't make it. If you do, great. I'd like obviously for you to come back and have a chat to us about your experience. If you don't, I think keep going.
There is so much to celebrate about osteo, Sami. Yeah. So that's why your podcast and things like it are just crucial. Like we need to be talking about how good it is. If there's challenges for the next generation to come through, it's our job to create an environment where those guys can come out, and it's in our best interest, but it's in their best interest.
Hello everyone, just a quick break to give you some information on where to best find me. The first place is the private Facebook group called the Successful Practitioner Pathway. I've set up this private group as a place where practitioners can go and get tips and advice on how to best accelerate their practice and improve their clinical practice skills. The second place to find me is at successinpractice.net. That is where the Success in Practice signature program is housed. You can find more information about me and how I can best help you achieve success in your practice. So the two best places, the private Facebook group, the Successful Practitioner Pathway, and successinpractice.net. I will link to both those places in the show notes, so for more information, please see the show notes. Now, enjoy, and back to the show.
All right, Tom, you mentioned earlier that, given your time over again, as an early career osteopath, you'd probably spend a bit longer kind of cutting your teeth and getting some experience under your belt. As a business owner and a clinician, what would be your advice to early career osteopaths today, thinking about, I guess, which direction to take their careers in terms of, starting their own clinics? And I guess, not everybody is cut out to be a clinic owner or a business owner. And given that mindset, what would be your advice to people thinking about which way to take their careers?
Probably.
You can be nice, but not. You can be kind, but not nice, mate.
Yeah, you don't know anyone's situations. I think so. Starting with business ownership, because I think we'll roll with that. Most people are not designed to run a business, nor designed to do it well. Most people don't get what they think they're going to get from it. We've eaten a lot of shit for a lot of years to get to a size where it makes sense. Not easy to do. Worth it now? Ask me 5 years ago, probably not. So there's a valley of doom in businesses that exist. Every business has its challenges, but there's certain times where it's more difficult than others. And there's a certain time where scale may be improving, but you're really going backwards financially for a long time. So the valley of doom from kind of, 1, 2, 3 people in a clinic is okay. Like, you can make good money, you can do what you need to do, and then really you need to get to about 20 to make it worth doing from that point on. Like, the middle section is maximal exposure to human risk without commensurate financial return. A lot of people management that goes on without being paid to do it. We were incredibly fortunate just to have cracking people for a long time. So that's what I would say. And if you're wanting to run a good business, go and work in somewhere that's a good business. And probably buy it from them. Don't start your own. So it took me 20 years to do this. Realistically, with any of the models that you look at now, you'll buy this and pay it back in 5 or 6 years, and then you're miles in front of where you would otherwise be. Spend 5 to 10 years in it, learning the ropes, learning the way to do things, learning the good stuff, the bad stuff, influencing the business positively, all of those sorts of things. There's just an enormous amount that you can learn along the way, and most business owners are very happy to do it with you because they know that at some stage there's going to be a transition.
And I think also our types of businesses are getting cheaper as well. When I say cheaper, I'm not cheapening what goes on, but because of the exposure to different marketing strategies now, you don't really have that. I mean, back in the day, the client list that the osteopath or the practitioner had built up is what you were really paying for. And that was hard to get because they'd really put blood, sweat and tears into getting that. Nowadays, with the internet being the way it is, patients have more options to go to other clinics. And so you can't really say as a clinic that you have a stranglehold on this particular set of clients. And so in that sense, it's kind of come down a little bit. So there's good value in purchasing a clinic. There's really good value. It's cracker value. Like why would you spend 5 to 10 years trying to build something when you could just buy it for at a certain cost and have it paid back, and then you've got an income stream, a cash flow that everybody a brand,
caseless systems like there's all sorts of stuff.
Everything, and the banks love that you've got cash flow straight away. And then off you go. I don't want to cut you off, Tom. Keep going.
No, the only reason you would do it is if you had like a genuine vision that didn't exist somewhere else, and that is completely fine. There's always going to be people with that, but people need to really interrogate what they're doing it for, and be really honest with themselves because they're a long time married to it, it's I mean that's what also makes it so fulfilling. Like I wander through here and I see all of these great people doing great work and patients laughing and getting better and doing all sorts of stuff, and it's incredibly fulfilling. But by God, it takes a pound of flesh. And that's okay. Yep.
It's. I was going to say I had a mate of mine who's a software developer, and he's already, I think he's built 4 businesses and sold them just off of tech that he's developed. I mean that's not what we do. Like we don't do that. It's not like we can't do that. You're exactly right. You're married to this because you're dealing with people's lives. You're affecting their life. You're getting to know their families. They're bringing their kids to see you. Their aunties, their uncles. You're building this client list of people who you're actually sharing a community with, and then to think that you're going to kind of just build a little practice, sell it, move on, build another practice, sell it, move on. That's not what we do. And so when you do get an opportunity to buy something that somebody's really built, you're getting something that's of great value. Yeah. It's really hard to get that without you putting in the time and effort. And that's it's much easier to pay for it.
Sweat equity, it's called, and it's hard won. The other one that I was probably going to talk about is, and with new grads, expect more of yourself. Like you're a health professional, and I mean a professional. Behave like one, like dress like one, smell like one, brush your teeth, speak professionally. Expect more of yourself. I think that's crucial. Like this is a professional business. As in healthcare, there's nothing more important than healthcare. Conduct yourselves accordingly. Think about the patient outcome. Patients are coming to you for solutions. It's not fair to dick around with people's health. It's not fair to take it seriously, and it's not fair to upskill you, to not upskill yourself consistently. I remember I had an epiphany one day. We had one of our guys, I think he was a soccer player. Anyway, he was talking about what he was doing to prepare for a match, and like he was training twice a week, and he was eating the right food, and he was not going out the night before, and all those sorts of things. And I said, "Oh, are you taking a similar approach to your work?" And he just kind of sat there, and the penny dropped. Like, there's all of this preparation that goes into playing football on a Sunday, but they weren't taking a similar approach to their work, for which they're being remunerated for, and for which they are responsible for someone's health outcomes. And I just think that there's times where as osteos, we don't take that seriously enough. We do not understand the impact that we can have on people's lives, particularly over a long span of time as well. Like, you can genuinely make life-changing changes to people. You can identify problems well before they occur. Like we talk about, beware the slow-moving bus. Like, you can look at someone's knee and just go, okay, that's going to be OA in 10 years. Why the hell are you not telling someone that? Like, why would you not be giving someone strategies to manage that now rather than wait until they're 60 or 70? Like, that's just baffles me that we don't extend our thinking out to that level. Yeah, and so the other thing I'm really curious about is AI in healthcare as well. I think that we're uniquely positioned to resist the impact and the advances of AI. I think we need to be leaning into that more.
Sorry, you said resist the impact of it?
Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so you would like to see us, I guess, not go down that path of AI, or
No, we absolutely need to utilise it. Like, we'll be left behind if we don't. But
right, you're talking about AI taking over our actual jobs. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yep. I'd hate to be a radiologist.
Yes, I'd hate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or even GP. Like, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to be really challenging as a profession in the next 10 years. But we occupy a unique space, and we occupy a space where we create amazing relationships with people. And with amazing relationships, you can drip water on stone, and you can erode health beliefs that have existed for a long while, and you can genuinely change people's outcomes long term. And we all should be expecting that from ourselves.
Yeah.
So I get very passionate about that.
That's right. That's right. I mean, look, I had a physiotherapist on the show a little while ago, Natalie Perkins, lovely lady. We had a great chat, and she was a little bit upset that physiotherapy is moving away from manual therapy, from hands-on manual therapy, and I guess, is that something that we need to be wary of moving into the future, in terms of having all the evidence-based literature out there that's telling us that we're no better than a Panadol and a walk for lower back pain, or whatever you want to, whichever other thing. Like, is there something? Should we be? How should we should be? I mean, I asked this question. We should be resisting that, but how do you think we best resist that, Tom? How do we maintain our uniqueness in the health landscape?
Yeah, I think we lean into what we're exceptional at, which is, and I don't, however you want to dress it up, I'm not particularly fussed one way or the other, but manual therapy, whether someone thinks it works or not, on a physiological perspective, I happen to believe it does. I think that's fine. What we know undoubtedly it does is it allows relationship creation. And with good relationships, you can manage people's health incredibly well. So even if for no other reason we use manual therapy other than as a Trojan horse to be trusted, and nothing creates trust greater than touch and pain relief, then so even if you look at that as the bare minimum that it can do, that in itself is unbelievably impactful. Humans are looking for real connection. They are not looking for more remoteness. Connection comes in touch, and it comes in relationships. And you create a good quality relationship with your patient, and you will get a good quality outcome with the patient. It's not rocket science in that respect.
No. And plenty of people like yourself have built very successful businesses and practices off of that philosophy.
The other thing too, Sami, is that what are you going to do other? So this always challenges me a little bit as well. You sit there and go, right, well, you're saying and I had an anaesthetist once who I was bike fitting, and so I spent 3 or 4 hours with him, and I just said, look, it was at the height of the hands-off stuff, and I said, look, we've got a therapist of ours who won't see a patient more than twice. We think we're enabling pain beliefs through touch and, all of those sorts of things. What do you think? And he looked at me, and he said, are you fucking serious? And I said, yeah, we need to be really careful. We don't want to talk about DIMS and SIMS, and we want to be doing these different sorts of things, which all of this has had, I'm at peace with that side of it. But to not touch a patient, and he said, okay, so I'll run you through 2 scenarios. The first one, you see a patient once a week for the rest of their life. Are you over-treating them? Are you doing any harm? I said, no. And he's gone, okay. He said, so this morning, I inserted 2 ketamine infusion pumps. I've done 6 radio frequency denovations, and I'm putting in a spinal stim tomorrow. If you keep one of these people out of my surgery, is that success or not? And I think we look at these things really wrong. Like when you're actually looking at net benefits and net costs, allied health is unbelievably inexpensive. It is unbelievably effective, and it can massively reduce chronic health load. We just never ever talk about it, and it does my head in. Prevention costs something like 14 times more than cure. For $1,000, you can rehab someone's OA knee, and potentially they either don't need to have the replacement, or they have it later, or they come back better from the. It's just the logic just tips over so quick.
Tom, you and I, we're humble osteopaths, and we kind of understand this. There are people out there probably a lot smarter than we are that know it as well. I think most people that get to a certain level of within healthcare understand that too. Do you just think that it's a coincidence that people don't talk about it, or do you think it's something that because it's not fun? Because you said it's a really cheap, it's a really accessible, cheap form of prevention,
which does almost no harm, by the way.
Yeah, is that a problem though?
Yeah.
Is that the problem, that we're too not we're too cheap, but maybe the wrong people are making money?
No, I think it goes back to.
Am I being too cynical here? Do I think that there's so many people that I talk to, and we talk to surgeons and people that are in the know, and they say the same thing, because these people are also interested in patient outcomes. And so what is it? What is it, do you think, within health and I guess the bureaucracy of health that doesn't take us in that direction? It's a loaded question, but
I think allied health does a very poor job of marketing itself.
Right.
I think we do it, and it's very difficult to quantify the health issue you solved. How do you stand there, hand on heart, and say, well, that was a laminectomy that didn't happen, or that was There's ways we can start getting there with data now, around osteoporosis and lots of other things. There's value propositions you can come up with around that. It's why I actually think Kaiser's really interesting. So Kaiser, just with their enormous data collection that they do with their rehab programming, they can now go and demonstrate very clearly to medico kind of, whether it be funding models or funding bodies or government regulatory bodies, how effective they are. I think it's really clever. I don't want to do it, but I think it's really, really clever. I think that we should be looking at how do we use data better for this kind of thing as well.
Okay. Well, mate, all of this, what we've talked about, leads me on to this question. Where would you like to see osteopathy head in the next 10 years in terms of professional direction and development? You've nominated yourself for a board position, and this should be something that you have thought about.
Yeah, I think we operate in a unique niche. I don't think we should try and be physios. I don't think we should try to be exercise physiologists. I think we should be osteos. I think we should lean very heavily into what we're exceptional at.
What is an osteopath, Tom? You just said we should be osteopaths. And I've asked this to most of the people on the podcast, so you've just said we should be osteopaths. What is an osteopath?
We are a health professional, first and foremost. We take care, we're custodians of people's health. We use, in my view, manual and musculoskeletal interventions to create long-term change in patients.
How is that different than a physiotherapist or a chiropractor or a myotherapist?
I don't think there's an enormous amount of difference. I think philosophically we approach things differently and we're trained differently, but I think we should be borrowing techniques but not necessarily doing what they do. I think physiotherapy has torn itself apart over the no-touching stuff that they're doing, and I think that they're much the poorer for it, which is exactly the direction I think that osteos should be leaning into. We should be doing more hands-on, and we should be really advocating for ourselves that that's creating long-term outcomes. I think we should be using experts in other areas to assist us in areas where we have.
You said earlier that we're unique. Initially, when you started telling me about, I guess what we should be doing, you said that we're unique, and that, but then you said that we aren't much different. And so, what makes us unique? You kind of touched on it, but I want you to. I know where you're going with this. I'm trying to kind of just have a conversation with you. So it's not.
There's a couple of things. There's a couple of things philosophically.
Yeah.
I think that
is the main difference philosophical between the way is an osteopath defined by the way they think rather than what they do?
That's a really good question. Yes and no. There's no proprietary techniques anymore. Like there's none. But also, so this is where I get in trouble, and this is probably why I'm a bit agnostic. I actually think that really good therapists are really good therapists, and I think they all trend in the same direction. And whether they're chiros, osteos, or physios, I probably don't really care that much.
Yep.
Like I think good therapists care deeply, think deeply about what they're doing. I think it's too glib to say that, we look at the body holistically and others don't, because that's not true. I think like anything, there's a continuum of practitioners, and there's certain physios who behave and treat very much like an osteo, and there's certain osteos who treat like physios, whatever that is, or chiros. So I think we have a lot of value to add. I think that a lot of our training and our hands-on techniques are extraordinary and are very different to what other therapists do. And I think that's something that we should be celebrating and leaning into.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I agree with you in that what you've said, that in terms of other therapists. Look, the way I think about it is that I don't think there's osteopathy I think there's osteopathy. I don't think there's osteopaths and chiros and physios and myos, and I think there's good medicine and there's bad medicine, right? And so you could be a cardiothoracic surgeon and practice good medicine.
Yep. You
could be a myotherapist and practice bad medicine. You could be anything and practice good medicine or bad medicine. I just feel like that from what I've thought about, I think the system of osteopathic medicine is as close as we've gotten to good medicine. I don't think we have all the answers. I don't think anybody has all the answers. I think there are some professionals who think they know 90% of what's going on, when in actual fact we only have probably touched about on maybe 7% of what's going on. I just think that the thought process of an osteopath, and yes, other professions do think holistically, and other professions look at structure and function. Other professions, obviously believe in the body's ability to self-regulate and heal. We just put it together nicely and have a profession around it.
Those principles have still stand up too, Sami. Like,
they do.
What are we, a couple of hundred years later, give or take?
Yes.
They absolutely do, potentially more so than ever. And there's a timelessness to good medicine, and there's timelessness to good knowledge. You put it much more elegantly than I did, but I do love the fact that we can musculoskeletally intervene and impact people's other systems. Like, I love down-regulating pain through a thoracic manipulation, or I think there's that stuff's, it's very good.
Yeah, someone's glaucoma improves from a OA manip, something like that. You just didn't mean to do that. You had a look at someone came in with some neck pain and you thought, oh, geez, that upper cervical's not moving very well. And they come back and say to you, geez, I was going in for that eye scan the other day and the glaucoma readings come down from 12 to 3 and they're not going to do an operation anymore.
I'd love to, I think the thing that I've learned over the last 10 years or so with other disciplines too is that we need to be looking, we need to be working with people more. Like, no one has all the answers.
No.
And like you talking about before, the good cardiologist practicing good medicine, like that is so true. If we can all have a better understanding of where each other's strengths and weaknesses are, we can actually really get good outcomes for patients by sourcing the right care at the right time with the right type of therapist. That's something that really excites me, that integration of multiple disciplines. I think anyone standing alone is going to have inherent shortcomings, but if you can get a network of people around you who understand what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it, then you can really start to leverage those things with patients.
Yeah. Tom, I cut you off earlier when we got to the little segue of what is an osteopath. I want to go back to your vision for the future of osteopathy. You said that we need to market ourselves a little bit better, and you talked about allied health marketing yourself a little bit better. In terms of osteopathy, moving into the future, can we do a better job in terms of teaching the public about what we do? I mean, I think we've tried it, but I don't think we've been very successful at it.
It's bloody hard to do, Sami, because there's not very many of us. What is there, 5,500 osteos?
Something like that, yeah.
And there's 45 or 50,000 physios. Like, it's a very crowded. It's not crowded. There's more than enough work for everyone, but it's quite hard to differentiate when you've only got when you've only got a certain number of members who can fund it.
Yeah.
So we need to be a bit more creative with the way we're doing things there. I don't know what the answer is to that, but happy to put my thinking cap on the board and see whether we can come up with a few ideas.
Right. Well, Tom, mate, I want to thank you for joining me today. For you listeners there who are listening and not watching, we've had some technical difficulties tonight, and hopefully you don't notice them after I've kind of chopped this episode into a full episode.
I have made your job harder tonight. So.
I know, mate. That's all right. A bit of post-production will come in handy, but I'll guarantee to people that I haven't cut anything out that Tom has said. Everything that you've heard tonight as he's shot straight from the hip, and I'm thankful to you, Tom, for doing that and for taking the time. I appreciate it, mate, and hopefully we can do a round two because I think there's more to talk about.
Thanks to you too, Sami, for doing it. And also, if you're ever in Albury,
yeah,
I'd love to see you here. It's a great city, good spot. Very proud of the clinic. And I just want people to lift their eyes outside the ring roads.
Yeah, definitely. So for people who are listening, especially students who are listening that want to get in contact with Tom and maybe have a bit of an experience outside of Melbourne and Queensland, southern Queensland, I'll put Tom's email in the show notes and you can contact Tom and have a chat to him. That'll be the end of our podcast today. Tom, stay on the line with me, but for everyone else, thank you for watching and listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.